Okay, welcome back to the Blockument.
Welcome.
Crypto education through everyday conversations. My name is Nate Talbot, Executive Director of Detroit Blockchain Center, and with me is...
Ashlee Rose. I am your everyday gal. I'm a mother, online reseller, and I'm on a journey to figure out what is going on with all of this crypto stuff.
All this crypto craziness. Mm-hmm. How's that journey going?
It's going good. I feel that some of the pieces are starting to come together, and I'm really excited to do this particular episode, especially since we started doing our little about the block height and things like that in the beginning. Yeah. So now I can kind of fully, hopefully, understand.
I was curious how much you would tie that together.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about with block height stuff?
Let's go over. Okay, so the block height, the current block height is 792,000. Oh, it just updated. Uh-oh. Hold on, it's coming in. Here it is. 792,828. It is a block size of 1.85 megabytes with 1,085 transactions inside of it, which is interesting to note because it's half of what the
previous block was.
Mm-hmm. And the total subsidies and fees are $175,555 USD, and that equates to 6.435 Bitcoin. And it was won by Foundry USA.
Foundry. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. Which block height was this you were reading?
This one is 792,828.
So, because I'm looking at a block explorer, and this is something we can dive into.
Okay.
I have a couple different numbers.
Which numbers are different?
Well, I have that the miner who won it was Mempools.
Oh, you know what? I didn't click on the new block.
Ah. Well, this could happen though. So Go ahead and give us the updated.
Yep. Okay. So it is still the same size and number of transactions, mm-hmm. and the block height is still the same, which is 792,828. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. The subsidies and fees are 175,218 USD, which equates to 6.423 Bitcoin. Which, that is interesting, actually. So I'm kind of glad that mess up happened because it's similar subsidies and fees for half the number of transactions.
Right, and this could actually happen. So we'll take a note. We'll dive into that as we get into block explorers and stuff. But this will lead us into what today's show is, right?
Yep.
Which is what are transactions, Mempools, and block explorers, right? We hear these words all the time, especially the transactions part when you're talking about crypto. But what does any of this really mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
So let's start. Well, what are transactions?
So I was thinking about that on my drive in because I was thinking it's interesting that nobody really cares about transactions and how they work. Typically, in the legacy system, it's something that we just do. No one really thinks about how they work and the mechanics of it.
Right.
So then I was thinking, okay, so then what are transactions? So I guess I would say just moving money from one place to another.
Okay. Cool. What are Mempools?
Mempools, a place where it's Bitcoin transaction. It's a transaction purgatory.
Transaction purgatory. Well, for some chains, it is turned into that. Okay, we'll take that for now. Yeah. And block explorers. What's your answer for that?
Block explorers, kind of like what I just used, I don't know if this is right or wrong, a tool to help you look at I don't know if you want to call them statistics or metrics of the Mempools.
Okay.
I don't know. That could be completely wrong. I'm literally just guessing.
No, I think you did a fairly decent job on all of those.
I would like to say I think Mempools are the transactions go there and they wait to be confirmed into their block.
Okay, let's take it step by step. They all tie together. They all work together.
Okay.
And it does start with the transaction. And a transaction, I mean, the most simple way to sort of put it is it's just a way that one or more parties transact, right?
You can't use the word in a definition.
How do two or more parties exchange value? They transact.
Okay.
And so in any kind of blockchain setup, it's the same thing. It's just a one or more parties transacting. You know, it's a peer-to-peer, so a individual to individual or computer to computer, however you're defining peer, right? It's how peer-to-peers can exchange value with each other without having a middleman. So a transaction, it could involve middlemen. And when you talk about financial legacy systems, that's usually what happens, right? If I want to send you some money, even today, let's say I just want to send you some, there's two ways I can do it. I can take actual cash, right? And the physical paper and hand it to you, or coin and hand it to you, and we just did a peer-to-peer transaction. Or I could say, well, I'm going to cash app it to you. Right. And that feels like it's peer-to-peer, but in reality what's happening is I'm taking money, sending it to Cash App, Square, who owns Cash App. They're taking the money and sending it to you. And it's even more complex than that because there are probably about 15 different little back-end intermediaries that Cash App is using, like my bank to them, to their bank, their processor, their rail, to your bank, to their back-end processors, finally to you. So it takes a lot of hops. And, of course, one of the problems with that, there's a couple problems with that. One of them is everybody wants a piece along the way. So I want to send you $10, but I got to pay like 0.5% here, 1/4% there. And at the end of the day, I could be paying anywhere from 2 to 5 to, depending on what systems you're using, sometimes up to like 10% or more. Yeah. Just to send you some money that I could have just handed you directly. The
cost of convenience.
Right. Not to mention, every time you add somebody in the middle, that's somebody who could steal from you, decide they don't like the kind of transaction you're doing. Just there's tons of opportunities for...
Or even just an error.
Errors. Yeah, there's just tons of places. If I'm handing you a $10 bill, it is what it is. So unless that $10 bill is not legit, there's not a lot of places for mess ups. So transactions are pretty simple, right? That's a simple definition. But when you're talking about a crypto system, a blockchain based system, you remember what are blockchains anyway, right? Which is just a sort of public ledger of transactions, right? So how does the entire network know that I want to send you some money? I want to send you some ETH. I want to send you whatever kind of crypto there is. And that's where Mempools and Block Explorers start to enter in. So maybe we do a simple sort of walkthrough on how that process goes.
Okay,
well, there's the basics. I'm going to most blockchain permissionless blockchain protocols are sort of like gossip protocols, right? It's like I'm yelling out to you. I'm yelling out to everybody what's happening, right? It's like, hey world, I want to send Ashlee 2 ETH, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. And that sort of goes into this echo chamber, and that just sort of bounces around. These are all the nodes. These are all the individual players in the system that are participating, and they all hear this. All right, Nate wants to send Ashlee 2 ETH, but somebody has to still mine or validate for ETH. You have to validate the block, right? We got the proof of stake. So you have all the validators. You got the people who are putting all the transactions. They listen to all those echoes, and they're going to randomly pick some, usually the one that pays them the highest fees, and they're going to throw them in a block. Right? And then they'll send it off. They'll propose that block, and then that'll get voted on. And if it gets confirmed, that announcement I made now goes to you, right? Or now gets confirmed into the blockchain.
Okay.
So that echo pool that they're listening from, that's called the mempool, right? It's a memory pool. Me yelling it out, it sits in the computer memory.
Memory pool.
Right.
There
it sits in the memory, your computer. It sits in the RAM, sits in the memory. And miners or validators listen for that, look at that, and say, all right, based off whatever they really want, typically it's whoever's paying the most fees. They say, all right, we're going to take this transaction, this transaction, this transaction, this transaction, that's going to be in the block. If you're a miner, then if you win, you know, the mining block, then, so that was what, ant pool for the one we read at the top. So that's what won. And they got to choose what transactions went in, which is why it was interesting when I saw different numbers.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not just that, all right, you were reading the wrong block.
Yeah.
But it's possible for two miners to win a block at the same time. Right? And so maybe my node sees ant pool as the winner. Your node sees Foundry as the winner. And so we're both looking at the same block height, but we will have totally different numbers because Foundry picked a different set of transactions than ant pool did. And so the how many transactions are in the block are going to be different. How many fees are going to be different. The only thing that's going to be a constant really is the hash of the previous block. Right? And the Coinbase, that 6.25 right now. Right? The reward. Those are the only two things that will be constant between the two.
Oh, constant. Okay.
Yep. Everything else is going to be different based on who wins the thing. And so that's sort of what the mempool serves. It's like this temporary, when you said it was like this purgatory.
Yeah.
It can be that.
Yeah.
So if you think like either during the last bull run with Ethereum on and off currently now with Bitcoin, with all the Ordinal and BRC20 stuff, it can be a purgatory because if you don't pay enough in fees,
you're going to sit there.
You're going to sit there, and you might sit there for days and days until the point where the mempool just kicks you out because it's not going to go through, or you do something to bump your fee or pay more in gas for Ethereum or whatever.
Yeah.
And while this isn't part of the official show title, you know, this is where fees even come into play to all this. Everybody talks. A lot of people talk about cheap fees, right? And you'll have a lot of layer one networks who pop up, and they're like, well, you should use our blockchain because we have cheap fees.
Yeah.
And the question most people got to ask is like, well, why are fees expensive in the first place? Is it just because the blockchain network in itself is trying to overcharge you? It's a decentralized system. It doesn't.
Right. Like, are they greedy, try to make money? Blah,
right.
Blah, blah.
And a miner could do that, but that's only, or a validator, either one could like only accept transactions at a certain fee, but this is why it's a competitive market. Right. So now, even if they did win one block and charge super high fees, the odds of them winning the next block are very slim. Right. So eventually your cheap transaction is probably going to get in anyway.
But then what happens with as we're doing these block heights and kind of going over the statistics and the data there, I'm noticing that it's a lot of Foundry winning and it's a lot of via Tech winning. It's a lot of these same ones winning. Now, if they become too powerful in a sense, they could do that, correct? Like they could be like, all right, now we're mostly winning all these blocks, so we're just going to go like the most expensive ones and everyone else. You have to either raise your fee or
you can. Well, this is where people worry about centralization. Right. And this happens in any of the networks. One thing that wasn't really considered when Bitcoin was first created, and even as Ethereum, and I'm going to mainly stick with Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. Okay. If you understand how those two work, with the exception of something like a Monero or a Zcash or something, which we can get into, every chain pretty much follows these two metrics, right? So whatever's true for Bitcoin or Ethereum, if you're a proof of work chain, it's generally going to work how Bitcoin works, and if you're a proof of stake chain, it's generally going to work how Ethereum proof of stake works. I forgot what your question was. The mining pools. One thing that nobody really anticipated was pools. So when Bitcoin first came out, right, everyone was like, "Oh, you'll be your own miner." Now Satoshi, in some of his early writings, did theorize that eventually only large data centers would be miners. He saw that happening. The Amazons, the Googles, because like as the hash rate increases, how hard it is to guess that random number that mining is really all about.
Right.
The harder that guess becomes, the more computational power you need, and your average person isn't going to be able. You're not going to be able to do it on your laptop.
Right.
And that's sort of what we're seeing happen, right? It's like it's going from anybody could do it on their old 5-year-old laptop to now you needed a specialized computer to now you need like an ASIC computer that only guesses hashes. That's all it does.
Yeah.
To eventually, you're going to need like a Google or Amazon style server. So that was always intended. But what they didn't expect was mining pools to pop up, where individual miners could all sort of coalesce their hash power together and then just share the rewards, right? And that's how, like, that's who's really winning these. When you see Ant Pool win, it's a mining pool. It's not like an individual solar miner. It's not like I just went out and set up my own data center.
And is that
mining.
the case because it has the word pool in it, so that's how you know, or they don't have to have like if it was like
it doesn't have to have the word.
Do you think Foundry is a pool too?
Foundry, I believe, is a pool. Almost everybody who's winning a large majority of the blocks are pools.
Oh, okay.
And then you can look at that. You can see like how much hash power each one has, how many blocks they're all winning. And it's like there are like 2 or 3 pools who control like 60% of the hash rate in Bitcoin.
So then just to clarify, so these let's use Ant Pool since they just won, for example. That's that miner who won is a pool of essentially ordinary folks who just joined that pool and are enjoying the benefit of winning that at a portion, like based off of whatever criteria.
Yep. So again, you and me both point our miners to Ant Pool. I got a miner. I have my own ASIC miner. You got your own ASIC miner. We both point them to Ant Pool, which is hundreds or thousands of individual miners like us, and we all contribute. And if my miner is the one who wins the block, right? Even though I won the block, I'm sharing that reward. It's like a lottery pool.
Oh, okay.
If you ever played, like if you ever go to an office or something and everybody in the office puts in on a lottery ticket, like your number is the one who won, but because you pooled your money to increase your odds, you still split it with everybody.
Okay.
And that's how a pool works, and that's the argument against them being centralized, right? Because it's a bunch of individual miners, and if any one pool gets too much hash rate, any individual miner at any time could just unplug from that pool and join a different pool.
Okay.
Right? And you could do that depending on your technical prowess. You could do that in like a matter of minutes.
So like if I were to start mining right now, like it would be in my benefit to point it at Foundry or...
It would be at any pool because the odds of you guessing that number are infinitely small. It's possible. It's happened a few times over the past few months where in solo miner, just one person with their own miner won the block. They won the whole
kit and caboodle.
Right. But it's like the lottery, right? The best analogy of a lottery is it's highly likely somebody's going to win because of the amount of people who play.
Right.
It's very unlikely that winner will ever be you.
Right.
The same concept when it comes to mining, right?
Okay.
So you're better off joining a pool.
Right.
But a downside of that is if you only have 2 or 3 pools, those pools are managed by still individuals.
Yeah.
It's not like and we'll get into this in a second, how Ethereum works now with proof of stake.
Yeah.
And it's running through similar types of problems, but it's a little bit different. It's not like these pools are ran by some decentralized organization.
Yeah.
Right. Ant Pool still has a management, an owner who's
like
doing
allocating
and right. And you have to trust that they're going to get the reward. They're going to distribute it back. When are they distributing it back? Is it as soon as they win it? Are you waiting on a 30-day payout? What's the deal? And you got to sort of trust that whole system. Right. Some are very open about it all and have a very open source sort of approach. Some are much more closed, and we don't really know what's happening. And if those 2 or 3 mining pools decide to collude, well, like I just said, there's only I think 2 pools right now control about 60% of the hash rate as of this block height, right? They could perform a 51% attack. They own 51% of the network.
That's a good point.
Right. Now it's highly unlikely because of how pools are generally set up. It's not like Marathon is a private equity pool mining company, so they do all of their mining. Like if they own 51%, they unilaterally could just make a decision. But with a mining pool, all the contributors could just unplug. Yeah. And now your hash rate as a pool drops.
And you no longer have
instantly. You no longer have the 51%.
Right. Okay.
But it's still a potential for it, right? And now you go look at Ethereum, and the same thing happened when proof of stake, and they started developing the whole Ethereum model of proof of stake, right? Liquid staking, which is a huge thing now, and staking pools weren't really the mindset. It was just like, you have 32 ETH, you put 32 ETH, you're now a validator. Yeah. Right? A miner. Yeah. In that regard. Yeah. But instead of guessing a number to win the block, you're randomly selected. Right? The original intent was most people would just be solo stakers. And anybody could enter in, you'd lock up your 32 ETH. But then what happens if you only have 30 ETH or 2 ETH or a half a ETH, right?
Like less chance of being selected.
Well, you can't even have a validator. You need 32 ETH. Yeah. If you don't have 32 ETH, you're not a validator. And so a bunch of people who didn't have quite 32 ETH could pool together and sort of come in and create their own validator. And so now you have these staking pools like Lido and Rocket Pool, and there's a couple of them, but Lido is the big one right now. So Lido, similar to how Bitcoin is, like Lido has like 60% of the validating power. All of the individual stakers are staking through Lido, even people who have 32 ETH, because you don't have to worry about the setup. There's a lot of work that goes into being a validator. Yeah. Right? You have to know how to do the technical setup with the hardware, because if you're offline when you get selected, you get slashed. You lose some of your stake. So that's a high risk.
And your odds of like winning something are...
Yeah, it's a random selection based off of how long you've staked your ETH. There's a few different variables we won't get into for today, but yeah, it's like a lottery with a weighted thing. It's not just about how much ETH you have, but how long it's been staked and things like that. But yeah, the more people who stake, the less odds you have of getting selected, right? So again, it makes more sense to pool into that. Yeah. But now Lido has all of this power. And one of the very first things that got identified was when Tornado Cash, when was that? That seems like yesterday, but I think it was almost like a year ago now.
For what?
Tornado Cash, which was a mixing service, right? Because remember, all this is transparent. So if you want to add any privacy, you would go through a mixer. Well, the U.S. deemed Tornado Cash to put it on the OFAC list, which means you can't. They treat it like North Korea, like you can't do any interactions with it anymore. Oh, wow. And so now, a validator, if you're a validator, you have to make a decision. Do you respect the OFAC list or do you not? Right. Do you run the chance that, especially if you're in the U.S., if you validate a transaction that touched Tornado Cash, well, then maybe you could be liable and end up in prison. And so now you have this validator that owns this huge amount of the validating power.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we're going to respect the OFAC list. So now they're sanctioning or censoring transactions.
Yeah.
That's not good for a censorship-resistant network.
Right.
Now, how detrimental is that? You know, that's very debatable because there are, even though it got censored, you know, every Ethereum block happens every 12 seconds or so. I don't think any transaction has had to wait more than about 15 or 20 minutes to go through. So even at a 12-second, block time, 15 minutes is a huge amount of time, but in the grand scheme of things, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Even if you have a sanctioned transaction, eventually, this is the decentralization part, somebody who doesn't care about OFAC will get chosen to do a validation, and they're going to put your transaction in.
Yeah.
Right? So,
but do you think them choosing to like abide by the OFAC decision is kind of like an influencing decision on their part?
Yeah, that's the problem with pools.
Yeah.
And this is, again, as staking was first thought of and proof of work, pools weren't really part of the conversation. It wasn't until they popped up. Just like exchanges. Exchanges were never part of that. Peer-to-peer cash.
Yeah.
Why would there be an exchange? We're supposed to be about people interacting directly.
Right.
So, yeah,
I mean, like,
these
do
are
you
unintended
think
consequences, but I don't think it's been, it's debatable on how detrimental it's been. It's definitely not ideal if you really want the purest version of the systems. And on both sides, on a proof of work and a proof of stake side, there are people who are working to figure out how to circumvent that. Because Andreas Antonopoulos, who, if you don't know who he is, you should check him out. Actually, remind me, I'll put him in the show notes, just to link to his work. He has a great talk he did about can't versus won't. Right? And that's really the difference when you think about a blockchain design system. It's permissionless, censorship resistant, right? Immutable system.
Yeah.
You can have a system where you won't defy the principles, but eventually if the government comes in or anybody comes in, once they bash you in the knee hard enough or threaten you with long enough imprisonment or threaten your family with long enough imprisonment.
Find your particular pain point.
Yeah, they find something that thumb on your neck, that pressure point. If you won't, I'm not going to do it. Oh, yes, you will.
That means
eventually you
can.
will. You can.
Yeah.
But if you have a system that can't,
right.
Well, then it doesn't matter what pain point they hit. I can't tell you. I don't know.
It's impossible.
Ashlee never told me her private key.
Yeah.
I can't give you her crypto.
Right.
Can't give up her Bitcoin. I don't know it. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Break both your legs.
Yeah. It'd be like me pressing you for the winning lottery numbers. Like you don't. Like,
I just don't know it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. So can't versus won't is a key principle in design mechanisms that you have to think of on a proof of work, on a proof of stake. It's one of the reasons I'm more of a proof of work maxi than a proof of stake. I like the concept of proof of stake. I don't know. We talked about game theory in a previous episode. I think that was episode 16, so go check out that. But that's sort of the game theory of it. We sort of discussed that, right? The game theory of proof of work primarily is I don't trust anybody, so you can't. I think everybody's lying to me. So if I let something go through, it's because I verified it myself. I didn't trust you. I verified it.
Yeah.
Proof of stake is more of a cooperative game theory. I think everybody has the best intent, but if you cheat, I'll punish you. There is no punishment in proof of work.
So then is proof of work a can't situation and a proof of stake a won't situation?
I won't go that far.
Okay.
Yes. Proof of work is a can't situation.
Okay.
Proof of stake should be a can't situation. And I don't believe it yet, but I don't know that it's not. I feel like there are more areas where it can be a won't versus a can't. But that's my whole hesitation with the whole proof of stake system.
Okay.
But they're working towards it, and as the closer and closer it gets, if it makes it to a can't, like an affirmed can't, and the only way you know is by getting attacked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So to sort of stay on topic, right?
Yeah.
So transactions are how we interact with people. The mempool is how the decentralized system knows what's happening.
Okay.
Right? You just got to yell it out. You sit in a mempool. And then we tell people all the time, well, one of the things that makes blockchain so great is it's transparent, right? You can see it. It's one of the arguments against regulating a true decentralized, peer-to-peer, censorship-resistant, immutable system. Their regulations are designed to stop people from cheating other people, right?
Yeah.
Math in and of itself can't cheat people, right? Now, people who use math maliciously and manipulate it, right? But if you have math that's built in an open source system, so anybody can validate the math, right? So now we know the math isn't cheating because every mathematician can look, right? And then you can learn how to be a mathematician and look, right? So the math isn't cheating you. And if all of this is really just math, cryptography, which runs this whole thing, is just math, well, then why do I need a regulation?
Right.
It can't cheat the system because, right, there's nothing there. So but the question is, how do you know? How do you look at it? A block explorer is a way for people to be able to interact and look at a blockchain to actually see what it is, what it's doing, who's doing what in a generally pseudonymous manner, right? Unless you're dealing with something like Monero or Zcash, Dash, some of the privacy coins, which make it a lot harder to break down that pseudonymy. And for those who don't know, right, almost every blockchain system is pseudonymous at best, which means...
Yeah, I was going to just ask.
Right, which means they don't know... It doesn't say that Nate Talbot from Detroit Blockchain Center is the one doing all these transactions. It says this random string, right? 0x372763331, whatever, GRL27, however. It says that is doing a transaction. And if I'm super focused on my privacy, right, I won't let anybody know that address is me. Right. It's just like if you make back in the day, you used to be able to set up a Gmail account and you just set new account, put the email address you wanted, and that was it. There was no verification. So if I just made a Gmail account, hot guy 313, nobody really knew. Even Gmail itself didn't really know who that was. Yeah. Now you have to do like number verification, things like that. Yeah. And the same thing's true with most crypto systems. Yeah. Right? You can stay pseudonymous, which means if you're careful, nobody will know it's you. Right. But I like to get my crypto through Kraken, an exchange, right? Well, I'm a U.S. citizen. Kraken's a U.S. exchange, which means they have to know their customers. KYC, yeah. I have to KYC, which means I got to send them my ID. I got to send them all this stuff. So while the general public doesn't know who the 0x whatever is, Kraken knows. And if the government wanted to know who this 0x is, because it's transparent nature, they can tie the transactions back to a Kraken exchange at some point. That means they can just go to Kraken and be like, hey, see this address? We need to know who sent it here. And Kraken can tell them. So now I'm not synonymous anymore. Right? Versus a system like a Monero or a Zcash, they have a lot more obfuscation, right? So you can... I don't know what that means. Like Monero uses this thing called ring signatures that sort of hides who's doing what. It'll still show you these two addresses interacted with each other, but the details are you just can't, you don't know anything about it. So while when I go to Kraken, they still know it's me, right? And they can see that I took some dollars and I bought some Monero. Yeah. Once I send it out, there's no way to prove that address is me. Okay. Because they don't know what was.
The
they
trail
don't know
goes
anything.
dead there. Yeah.
It just goes dead, right? Same thing. If you could find a way without KYC to take like your Bitcoin, and then send that to turn that directly into Monero, and then turn that Monero back to Bitcoin.
Right. Then you're.
Well, at that Monero point, is the trail sort of goes dead.
Yeah.
Right.
What do you mean if you can find a way? Like that's not like a common. Like it's not easy. It's hard.
Well, you have to avoid KYC. If I'm going to use Kraken to do it, Kraken sees everything I'm doing because I'm in their house doing it.
Yeah.
But if I do like a peer-to-peer, if I just go to you and say, you have Monero, I have Bitcoin, and I give you the Bitcoin, you give me Monero, they see my Bitcoin goes to this address, but they don't know who you are unless they bash me in the knee hard enough.
So that's the only way to do it even with Monero is a peer-to-peer?
There's some
like I'm
DeFi
I'm not
options.
willing to disclose.
Well, because
Which is
I
fine,
don't know
yeah.
there are things like, let's say, Thorchain,
Okay.
which and this concept, also another concept called atomic swaps, which facilitate going from one blockchain to another blockchain without using an intermediary, right? So you don't need the Kraken in between. They're not very popular. They're sort of more complex. And something like a Thorchain, you're using smart contract systems. So you still got to sort of trust the smart contract system and whatnot. So use at your own risk. The safest way to do it is, peer-to-peer, how all of this stuff was meant to be, which is peer-to-peer. But yeah, if you want to maintain your privacy, then yes, you want to avoid KYC things, because you can use a block explorer, and this is how there's companies like Chain Analysis, who sort of built their claim to fame on breaking that tsunami in crypto transactions. And then that was their claim to fame. Their claim to payroll was then selling that information to governments, right? So they would tell you this, that, and the other, and how accurate that information is still sort of debatable. They'll say it's great information, but really they just sort of tie together. So if you go, let's use Ethereum as an example, right? If you go to a website called Etherscan, right? It's etherscan.io.
And so that's a block explorer.
That is a block explorer, right? That's going to show you anything that's on almost any EVM chain, any Ethereum friendly chain. So Ethereum, Avalanche, Binance chain, any chain that uses an EVM sort of setup, you can sort of look at those transactions on Etherscan. You won't be able to see Bitcoin transactions there.
EVM. What's
Ethereum virtual machine.
Okay. I'm like nodding like I know, and then I'm like, no.
Right. Or if you're interested in like the Bitcoin side, you can use what we use every episode, right? When we start the show off, we're using
Mempool.space.
Mempool.space. And that's going to allow you to see everything that's happening on the Bitcoin blockchain. So both Etherscan and Mempool.space serve the same function. Etherscan allows you to view the blockchain of any EVM, any sort of Ethereum-friendly blockchain, while Mempool.space allows you to look at the Bitcoin blockchain. Right? And that's what we do every show, because instead of using the date, we use the time, the block height, which gives you a
reference
point. Mutable reference point in time. And the information we're reading, that's how we know any of this information. It's looking directly on chain. So when
and on chain, is that what exactly does that mean?
On chain? It means it's on the blockchain.
Okay.
So
but
clarity,
like meaning like, yeah.
So here's the thing. When you're doing transactions, right, you're going to say, I'm yelling out to the public, hey, I want to send Ashlee 2 Bitcoin, right? I just yell that out. My node yells that out, or my wallet yells that out into the ether sphere. And then all the other nodes that are near me hear that and put it in their memory.
And so at that point, when you yell it out, is it on chain?
No.
Okay. When it goes,
So
when it goes in the
I just yell it out. When it goes in the mempool, it's not in chain.
Okay.
It's just sitting in a miner's memory.
Okay.
But it hasn't made it into a block.
Like it's, dare I use this term? Like it's RAM is RAM memory.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's sitting in there.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep. So it's sitting in there, and then the miners look in there and they find game theoretically, they're looking for whatever's going to pay them the most.
Right.
But they could pick none of them and just mine an empty block. They could say, all right, maybe they know these transactions come directly from me. And for whatever reason, I got them only accepting my transactions. They could literally just pluck out every transaction that came from me, right? They can pick whatever they want out of the mempool. Just because you're in the mempool does not mean you're in a block.
Yeah.
Then they take it, they can put it in their block, but if they haven't won it, it still doesn't mean anything.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
Then they win the block. Now you're in the block. So on your wallet, you'll see like one confirmation. It'll go from 0 confirmations, which means you're just sitting in the mempool, to 1 confirmation, which means now you're in 1 block. But the question is, remember how we started the show, we had 2 different interpretations of the same block. So if I'm buying a coffee from you, right?
Yep.
You probably don't care. You're going to trust I'm not trying to double spend. I'm not trying to cheat you. 1 block is enough. Maybe 0 blocks is enough for you. You just see it in the mempool and you're like, it'll make it. I'm good. Right? But if I'm buying a house from you, you want to make sure you got that money.
Yeah.
So how do you know when you see 1 confirmation, the block you're looking at is the block that the rest of the network is looking at? So maybe you wait to 2 confirmations. Now, 2 confirmations means there's another block 1, right, that's sitting on top of your block, which means whoever won that newest block agrees with you. That block that said I sent you the 2 Bitcoin, that was real. Right? But maybe twice in a row, we got it wrong, right? We disagree. Half the network thinks one thing, half the network thinks another thing. So maybe you feel comfortable with 3 blocks, right? That old block is getting more and more buried.
Yeah.
So traditionally, early in the days, with Bitcoin specifically, because of the block time, once you hit 6 confirmations, that was considered the golden number, right?
Okay.
Once you were 6 blocks deep, there were 5 other blocks on top of yours. The odds that the whole network was split and undecided on what the real chain was, the odds of that were so minimally small, like it was theoretically impossible, right? So 6 blocks used to be the golden number. Now, with the hash rate being so high and things, really once you see like, for most transactions, 2 or 3 is pretty solid.
Okay. Now I have 3 questions, but I don't know if they're off topic and we can answer them in the block notes. So I'm just going to read them off and then I have them written down. So if you forget them, no worries. So it's a transaction is only on chain when it's in a block that has 1.
Yes.
Okay.
1 confirmation.
Okay. And then.
And this is true for all chains.
Okay. And then. This is, to me, it feels silly, but I'm going to ask it anyways. So you were saying how the transaction can get buried 1, 2, or 3, or so on layers, blocks deep. Does that mean it's like more on chain? Like, is there variations of like being on chain?
No, it's more immutable. So that's a good question, right? So with Bitcoin, its finality is instant, right? The immutability. When can you start to trust it, right? You can generally trust it at 1 block.
Okay.
But that immutability was really 6 blocks historically, right? It's like, all right, once it's 6 blocks, we know no double spends are happening.
Right.
All right?
Right.
I can't copy and paste my money. With a system like Ethereum, and most proof of stake systems, right? They have longer finality, is actually one of the attack vectors of early proof of stake systems. It's called a long range attack, which means it made it in a block. Your block time is a half a second. You got blockchain networks out there talk about half-second confirmation times. Cool, it's confirmed, but the way they're structured, trying to word it without getting technical on it, the way they're structured, even though your transaction is in a block, you could be 10,000 blocks deep, right?
Okay.
The finality isn't really there. It wasn't hard. It wasn't really hard for an attacker to go and still modify that 10,000 block deep confirmation.
Okay.
Which means you didn't have finality. Okay. That's still a problem a lot of proof of stake, maybe all proof of stake systems still have, which is why an alternative some of them are looking at is, all right, well, maybe we wait and every 20 blocks, right? We take a state. Here's what our 20 blocks look like, and then they send that to the Bitcoin blockchain for finality, because now it can't be changed. Bitcoin's a much more solid finality. Are you saying they take the proof of work is
the proof of stake and put it on the
proof of work chain? But instead of doing every transaction, they might do batches,
right?
Every 10 or 100 blocks, depending on their block time.
I feel like that kind of speaks volumes for proof of work.
It does speak volumes.
Because if another type or category is using the other one, it's basically saying like you are better than us.
Yeah.
Or more secure.
It's however you want to use the word.
But the idea is
the reason why is Bitcoin so quote unquote, if you're not watching, big quotes, slow, right? 10-minute on average block times, even though like the last block happened in 2 minutes.
Yeah, I saw that.
10 minutes on average block times, right? Why does it take 10 minutes? Why don't they do it in a half a second or a quarter of a second, right?
Right. Security, yeah?
Well, no. This is all about consensus. You have to coordinate thousands of individual, unrelated parties. We all have to agree on the state of the blockchain, right?
Yeah.
We don't know each other. We don't know anything. We don't trust. With a proof of work system, you don't trust anybody.
Yeah,
I think everybody's lying to me, so I have to verify it all. And so it was agreed upon that about 10 minutes was the right amount of time between blocks. So that's why Bitcoin is designed to happen every 10 minutes. Within 10 minutes, that's enough time for a global network of individual players to agree on the current state of the chain.
Okay.
Right? And that's all based on your hash rate, how fast you can guess the number and whatever, how much energy you're using and whatnot. So if you're going to shorten that time this is just especially any computer system, right? If you're going to shorten the time, that means you have to give up something somewhere else.
Right.
Because if it was just like, oh no, you could do it in a half a second, then why wouldn't any system be a half a second?
Right.
There has to be compromises. One of those compromises is those long-range attacks, that finality. And so proof of stake happens a lot faster. So it'll go to Ethereum, right? That was like 15 seconds when it was proof of work. It was still proof of work, but it was 15 seconds. It still had faster, it still had that's not even the right word there either. The finality wasn't as solid as like with a proof of work, as with Bitcoin's longer finality times. With proof of stake, they shaved around 3 seconds off. Now it's around 12 seconds, but they have bigger problems with finality. So how Ethereum today solves that is they have like these slots, which are the blocks. And then every group of slots, they call an epoch, and I can't remember exactly how many slots that is, but it's around every 6 minutes. So just do the math. 6 minutes divided by around 12 seconds, right? That many blocks. That is what they call an epoch. That's their finality, right? So after 6 minutes of individual blocks happen, all right, this one is sealed. This is considered immutable, right?
Yeah.
And then they start building on top of those epochs.
And so that gets logged into the Bitcoin blockchain?
No. None of these no.
Oh.
The logging into the Bitcoin blockchain is an alternative some proof of works, some proof of stake systems are considering for their finality.
Okay.
Ethereum handles it differently. They have
Okay.
the slots and the epics, and then that's built in.
Got it.
But it's a new system, so we have to wait until people attack that system to see. So, for an example, a couple weeks ago from today, there was twice within, I'll say 48 hours, Ethereum skipped its finality because it's a validator system, right? And so you're randomly chosen. So if you're a validator, and you're chosen, all right, you need to, is this epic? Check all the transactions. Is this good? Is this straight? Is there no cheats? Is it all fair game?
Yeah.
Your job is to say, yes, I've checked all the transactions. It's fair game, and put that epic in. What happens if you're offline? You get chosen, but you're offline.
Yeah.
You're not available. You just can't do your job, or you do it poorly, or do whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you skip that finality. There is no confirmation. And so that's not stopping your transactions from happening. The blocks are still processing, but the finality isn't there.
Do those transactions still get like, I don't know if this is the term, but like confirmed or like put into the chain? Like,
yeah, but how do you know the double? Remember the one thing every blockchain solves. There's only one problem it solves. Double spends.
Okay.
Right? If you're going, how do I make sure in this whole system that I didn't copy and paste? How do you know I didn't copy and paste a $20 bill?
Yeah.
Like I just generated free money and gave you a $20 bill for this good and service, and I gave somebody else a same $20 bill. With cash, you're literally handing them the dollar.
Right.
So now it's out of my custody.
Right.
I can't double spend it. With traditional finance, this is why we have trusted third parties like banks. They're verifying. If I send you money through Cash App is verifying I'm not taking that exact same money I sent you and sending it to Alice at the same time.
Right.
We're trusting that third party
To do the verification.
Blockchains, permissionless blockchains, solve that problem.
Right.
How do I do this and you know I didn't double spend it?
Right. So then does skipping the finality essentially mean that they like mined an empty, or not mined, but like it was an empty epoch?
There's no finality.
Epic?
Everybody who has a transaction there,
Does it go through or not?
Doesn't know that the money that they received hasn't been double spent.
Okay. So it's like an uncertain
It's
epic.
just like with Bitcoin, right? It's just just like with Bitcoin, like I was saying, 6 transactions, 6 confirmations.
Right.
With 6 confirmations, statistically, you know the money you received has not been double spent. You haven't been cheated. With 0 confirmations, you don't know anything.
Right.
With 1 confirmation, it's probably pretty strong, but there's a possibility, right? So just think of Ethereum's epic as Bitcoin's 6 confirmations. It's the same kind of concept.
Right, but if the epic skipped its finality.
Exactly. So imagine the 6th confirmation never just came in.
Yeah. But so then does it have to be like another epic or maybe 6 epics to then give it its kind of finality?
Well, no. Once you get an epic that's confirmed.
After it?
Yeah. So like what happened with Ethereum's case is, for whatever reason, a validator was offline or there was some problem in their setup for at least one of the cases. The finality never happened. So while all the transactions were there and went through, we don't know how final they were.
Right.
When the next epic happened, that validator was there. So that validator sort of did double duty.
Yeah, kind of did double the work. Okay.
But then a few blocks later, or a few hours later, within 2 days, it happened again. So now the question comes: that was nothing. It was not like a catastrophe for Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like I said, for normal users, they didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have you're talking about building these systems that global economic powers rely on.
Yeah.
Theoretically, what happens, right, we see what happens now when finality doesn't happen once. the system did what it was supposed to do, and it did it on the next epoch. Mm-hmm. Cool. What happens if it misses 2 epochs?
Like in a row?
In a row. Mm-hmm. 3. 8 epochs in a row. Mm-hmm. Can global financial systems really depend on that?
Yeah. And
Maybe.
if they let any, like Joe off the street do the validating, that becomes a real, like, probability of happening, right? Or no?
I don't know if that's so much of an issue because you're not, even with proof of work, right? Anybody could be a miner.
Right.
We don't trust anybody.
Right.
So this is where nodes, non-mining nodes, when they say run your own node,
Right.
that's where that comes important. And that's also true for Ethereum. Even though a validator says or does something, doesn't mean that the whole network has to trust them. It's part of the Ethereum validation process. You get chosen as a validator. You have a block builder. You get a validator who validates the block and proposes it to the network, a block proposer. But then all the other validators sort of look at it and vote. Yeah, that's good. We agree with that. Right? So you're never really just trusting one entity. It's sort of a team job.
Got it.
Right? But as we run close on time, there is one other thing I wanted to tell people about.
Okay.
And maybe we dive deeper into it on the block notes. An awesome site to really visualize how all of this works is this website called txstreet.com, right? And it's going to be in the, check out theblockiment.com. I'll have a link directly to it.
The resources.
Yeah, it perfectly, in my opinion, represents what's really happening. And I know we're on most platforms in audio only, so you can't see it. And even if you're on YouTube, we don't have our system hooked up yet for you to see it.
Yeah.
Yep, but that's coming. But when you go to txstreet.com, this is what you're seeing. And this is the best way to visualize this in any blockchain system. I don't care which system you're talking about. Think of it like you're at a train station. Right? And every person in the train station is a transaction. That is somebody who yelled out, I want to send, it's representing party A sending something to party B, right? And if you're just thinking of a train station, you're thinking of all the people who are walking around, random people, they all need to get on the train. The train is the block, right? Outside of the train is the mempool. So the general station is the mempool. You're not on a train yet. You're at the train station.
Yeah.
You got a plan to go to a destination.
Right.
But you ain't there yet. Once you're on the train, you're looking good to go to your destination. But if the train has never pulled off, you're never really going anywhere, right? So you have a bunch of people who are in the train station trying to get on a train. Right. You, right, Ashlee Rose gets on a train. So you feel like, oh, I'm good. But you're not confirmed yet. The train hasn't left. You're not good because you haven't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
But you're on the train at least.
Yeah.
Except all the trains, it's not like, hey, buy a ticket, and when the train is full, you just got to wait for the next one.
Yeah.
The train is an auction.
Yeah, taking the highest bidder.
Taking the highest bidder. So you got on this train. You're the lowest bidder, but you're on the train.
Yeah.
And then I come along.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I really need to be on that train.
Yeah.
Well, all I have to do is bid higher than the lowest bidder.
Meaning increase your
yeah, I just
fee
got to pay more in fees, right? So you paid, let's say, we'll use Ethereum as an example.
Okay.
You decided to pay 500 GUI, which is gas.
Okay.
You pay, right?
Okay.
You decided to pay 500 GUI to get on the train. On the train.
Okay.
I come along and say, well, I'll pay 550. The train conductor is going to take you and boot you off, and I get on.
Okay.
Right? And until the validator validates the block in that slot, right, nobody's guaranteed to be on that train. And so when you look at this website, that's what you sort of see happening. You'll see all these people get on a train, but then you'll see a whole bunch of people come off and a whole bunch of other people get on.
Yeah, because they got kicked off.
They got kicked off.
Okay.
They didn't pay enough in fees.
Yeah.
Right? So the people on the sideboard there, that's the mempool. When they get on the train, It's like they've paid enough to get on there, but if the train hasn't taken off, they're not guaranteed. But then the train takes off, and you'll notice on the Ethereum side of the screen, right, it takes off around every 12 seconds.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we're looking at it right now, and on the right, it's the Bitcoin train with the Bitcoin loading area. And on the left, it's the same for Ethereum. And there's a lot more people on the right waiting to get on the train for Bitcoin than there are for Ethereum. And also, the train is taking off much faster for Ethereum.
Right, and that's because Bitcoin has that 10-minute block time.
Yeah.
Ethereum has a 12-second. We could throw on something like, I don't know, Solana, which has like half-second times or something like that, and it's going to just keep taking off.
You can select which
train. They have a few different trains you can look at. We could look at like Monero or Litecoin.
Bitcoin
We could look at some layer 2s like Arbitrum.
Look at that.
So yeah, that's how it works.
And so what's that at the top? It looks like there's some sort of like a message board. It says medium tax fees.
That's exactly what it is. It's a message board. So just like when you're at the train, you're seeing like when the train is supposed to arrive,
and
late departures. So it's telling you the last block for Bitcoin was 16 minutes ago. So we've waited 16 minutes.
And then it switches.
The median fee is $1.43.
Okay.
So half the people on the train have paid more than $1.43.
And so that kind of gives you an
idea. Less than $1.43.
If you have an urgent transaction, go maybe like 10 cents over or 20
or
cents over.
$1.43.
Oh, because it's the
median. And so median means the number in the middle. Half the people paid more, half the people paid less. If you want guaranteed on this train without like guessing this, you could, if you definitely want to be guaranteed, no question, you would pay like $3. Nobody's paying $3. The median fee is $1.43. Yeah. Right? So you're guaranteed you're going to be on that next block.
It's also interesting that they're using, for the median fee, they're using USD and not like sats for the Bitcoin, for example.
Yeah, you could probably edit that to see how that is, but that's how most people understand it right now, right? In the world right now, dollars are the unit of account.
Yeah.
It's what we understand it by.
Not for long.
Right, not for long. But you'll see, like on the Ethereum side, it's $1.36.
Yeah.
Right, and that's just for a basic Ethereum. If I'm sending you Ethereum,
so not only does Ethereum take off more frequently, it looks like does it hold more transactions? Is that what that said?
Yeah.
Pending transactions 75,000 plus, and pending transactions for Bitcoin was that
61,000. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, Ethereum has, and sort of beyond the scope, but Ethereum has a flexible block size. Right? Bitcoin has a fixed block size, which is, this is complicated. In theory, it's 2 megs now that we have SegWit. It's a 1 meg block size, but because we have SegWit, which is this little car in the back.
Okay.
Right? And that's sort of a good way to memorize it. This orange block for Bitcoin, that's 1 meg.
Okay.
But depending on how you slice it up, you can get a whole another 1 to 3 megs inside of this little SegWit bus.
So the SegWit is kind of like when you have like a car and you pack up your car because you're moving, but then you get like a small little U-Haul behind you for your extra.
SegWit is the U-Haul extra.
Okay.
And when your car is full, your block's full.
Okay.
So yeah, this is a good way to sort of visualize it. And then the last piece I'll toss on you is these are people who are probably still get on one of the next 2, or depending on which chain you're looking at for Bitcoin. The people standing here are people who will probably end up getting in the next block or so. There goes a Bitcoin block, just got confirmed.
Yeah.
Right? When you scroll down, these are all the people who want to pay low transaction fees. You see this like barrier that says low fee line.
Yeah.
These are the people who are like, all right, if the minimum fee is $1.43, I'm not paying more than 10 cents.
Yeah.
So you go down here.
So they're living in fantasy land.
Look
at how many there are. He's scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
And
it's just like
people with
packed
low
with
fees.
people like.
But if it's not high priority, right? Like, all right, I want to consolidate my wallets. I got Ethereum in 5 different wallets. I want to put that down into 1 wallet, right? Because they're all relatively small fees. I don't really care. It's me sending it to me.
Yeah.
I don't care if it's done in 15 seconds. I don't want to pay $1.36 to send it to myself.
Yeah.
I'll pay 20 cents.
Yeah.
And what I'm banking on, because usually you'll sit in a mempool, and this varies from chain to chain, but usually you can sit in a mempool for a couple days, maybe even up to a week, just sitting there before the mempool just sort of kicks you out, right? Which means you can't do anything with that.
Yeah, it's like tied
But
up.
it's not gone. You haven't lost it to the mempool because until it gets in another block, it never really leaves your wallet.
Okay.
Right? So you could be stuck in the mempool for a while, but what I'm banking on the Ethereum side is that, like, I'm paying 15 cents. I don't care.
Yeah.
What I'm banking on is there's going to be one block between now and the next few days.
Yeah.
There'll be one block that, for whatever reason, has so few transactions.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's this gracious validator, right? I could set up my own rules as a validator, as a or as a Bitcoin miner.
Yeah.
I could set up my rules. So maybe my rule is I want to show some altruism. Whenever I win a block, I allow 10% of the block space to go to people who pay
super low.
10% or less of the average going rate.
Yeah.
And so I'll put them in. I'll give up those high fees because I'm just that altruistic.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll pop up on one of those. And if not, it just gets rejected eventually and you're good to go.
Okay, I have more questions, but I probably should wait for Block Notes, yeah?
Yep. And, you know, if you got more questions, too, let us know, because we can either answer them on our Twitter or Facebook, preferably Twitter, because that's where I'll be. But TikTok, where are we at?
Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube. I believe that's it.
All right.
I believe that's all the things.
So go check us out there. Ask questions. Tag us at The Blockument, at all of them. Go to theblockument.com. We'll have some resources to all the sites I mentioned today, plus where you want to listen to the show, whether it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube. And if you want to hear what these extra questions are, remember on YouTube only, we do Block Notes, which is sort of the little after show. An extra 10 to 15 minutes, because we always end up after every show talking for another 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because this is just never enough time.
Yeah.
So go check that out. And we will, other than that, I guess we'll see you in a couple weeks. Yeah. So come for the riches.
Stay for the revolution.
Stay for the revolution. We'll check you next time.
Peace.
Peace.